How's it going, everybody? This is Trixx Meta, welcome back to yet another discussion video. And buddy, you look incredible today, just in case no one's let you know you look good. And today we're going to be talking about one of the most interesting phenomena, in my opinion, I will say, and that is players who continue to come back to games that they've openly expressed to absolutely hate. It is without question that video games are one of the highest stress-inducing things on the entire planet, yet for some reason, it's absolutely fascinating to me that players by the thousands will find themselves coming back to video games time and time again after screaming, raging, throwing things, or possibly even taking to Twitter and becoming absolutely racist. For some reason, they always find themselves back on the game the very next day to try at it again. What is it about video games that is so addicting that even despite losing in the most horrific and brain-dead annoying ways, people keep on coming back? What is it that makes people want to keep on going through this absolute AIDS and torture every single day and then claim after all that's said and done that they did in fact actually have a good time? We all know that competitive fighting games are some of the most rage-inducing types of games in the entire world. They seem to be the greatest test of someone's patience when they're getting absolutely wobbled into oblivion and there's nothing they can do but just try and keep it together when they are absolutely molding and dying on the inside. And the thing that absolutely gets me and makes this whole phenomenon so intriguing is the fact that while these players are dying on the inside, their opponents are not only having a great time, but in many cases also laughing at these players. There's something about basking in the salt that players live for. They find it to be so hilarious when somebody is the butt of a joke or happens to be losing in a horrific way. So why is it that the biggest ragers in most video games always consistently come back? I don't know if I have a true answer to this, but I do have some theories. One of my greatest theories is that despite all the bullshit in fighting games that can happen to you, players live for the thrill of that one dopamine hit that they will inevitably finally get when they do something immaculate. They are more than willing to lose 100 times, in some cases even 1,000 times, to get that one beautiful, succulent clip that makes it all worth it. There's something about competitive video games that bring out the absolute worst in people. But on top of that, if a player's honor is being challenged, they feel like they have something to prove. And even if they are laughed at and ridiculed and made fun of, or even are losing in horrific ways for the majority of the time, they feel like they have to prove that they are in fact a somebody. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't want this video to turn dark, but there are definitely some very sad reasons as to why people continue to come back to something when they're getting absolutely slammed daily. And I think the ugly truth is that many players actually judge their self-worth on video games. This is absolutely apparent, especially in the World of Warcraft scene, where players will undoubtedly put themselves at a higher status if they have the best weapons, the best armor, or if they themselves are very skilled or they've reached a certain status in the game. It also is very prevalent and very obviously seen in competitive Call of Duty. Some of the craziest amounts of rage and toxicity comes from the Call of Duty scene. This is absolutely the truth, but if you were to ask anybody if they actually enjoy playing Call of Duty, everybody says yes. But in the same breath, they say that they absolutely hate the game. And so players put themselves in this infinite feedback loop where they're constantly searching for that dopamine hit, feeling like all that has been done to them that is bad will just simply be erased once they finally have something that is good happen for them. Another massive part of it is that players will go out of their way to invest years of their life into a video game. And if they're not going to have success, they look at all the time that they've put into this game and say, well, I can't quit now. I've done so much work and put in so much effort. I need to have that taste of success, even if it means hating their life. And so you will see players reluctantly play games where they're getting constantly shit on, but they've convinced themselves, I can't quit at this point. This is my life at this point. This is my identity at this point, and I absolutely have to stick with this until I am fulfilled. And that brings me to another point. There are a ton of players out there that are going through an identity crisis because they know once they turn the video game off that they are actually pretty good at, they are going back to normal life and the escapism ends and they feel like they are now a regular person once again. That feeling of strength and potential dominance that could happen in a video game is now taken away. And so they stick with these games when they feel like they are so unbelievably close to actually being a sufficient pro player, top player, or a high level player at the very least. I think it's also pretty interesting that players will go out of their way to play a game that they don't even like, but on top of that, also play a character that they know for a fact has a ton of flaws, and they blame these flaws for their failures all the time. And I find that genuinely fascinating, knowing that people know for a fact that they could easily have substantially more fun in what they are doing, but they decide to be stubborn and stick to their old ways, and instead they stay miserable. And it's crazy because some players are playing certain games that they've been playing for literal years, and they know that the scene is not going to change. So if they wanted to pick up a better character, they could. And if they wanted to actually have success, they could. But once again, they decide, you know what? I don't want to do it. I'm going to stick to how I've always done things, and this is just going to be my life. But I'll also say that I've noticed something to be very true about the competitive scene for any game, and that is that competitive players are extremely emotional creatures. More often than not, it's not so much that players love to lose or love to hate on a game. It's more so that they just enjoy the rush of feeling something, whether it is extremely high highs from success, even if it's very rare, or the extremely low lows where they are raging. And I will say some players get very animated when they rage. They throw chairs, they scream, they swear, they break things, and for them, it's fine. They don't mind it. And it seems to be, it's something that I cannot wrap my head around. I don't understand how somebody could possibly be so animated and so angry towards something that they don't have to put themselves through, but they insist and they continue to do it for years. And I'm not even saying that somebody is emotional in a bad way. Being emotional is not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, but it's just wild to me that these players, and I will say that when they lose, it is insane and it is extravagant or obnoxious or whatever you want to call it. But when they pop off, my God, they make it seem like it is in fact actually worth all the pain, especially if they do it against all odds. And so it kind of makes you wonder, do these players even actually know that they are conveying hatred in the way that they are acting, or are they just simply expressing themselves? And what are your thoughts? Do you believe that there is actually a place in competitive gaming where being emotional in a competitive game is actually acceptable? Because I will say this, in competitive sports at the highest level, the NFL, the NBA, if somebody wins a championship, they absolutely pop off and they scream and they throw their helmet and they cry and they fall on the ground and everything else, but it seems to be either justified or accepted as totally fine. You reach the highest level, congratulations. But in video games, it's really not like that. In many cases, in the highest level of esports, if you pop off after a win, even if it's a small or big win, it doesn't matter. People will say that it is very disrespectful, as if you are supposed to just win Evo Grands with a straight face and be like, all right, GG's, good job. If you pop off, I feel like it is warranted. But on the flip side, if you also are a rager, that also is disrespectful. So is it just showing emotion in general that is the problem in esports? Because once again, in professional sports, if somebody gets emotional and quite angry, and it happens a lot, especially in hockey and in football, it is fully acceptable as long as you're not doing anything illegal or charging yourself with any sort of a fine. It seems like raw emotion in and of itself in a professional sport is completely okay, but in esports, it's frowned upon whether you are excited or angry. And I know at this point we're kind of jumping around from a couple different topics and we're getting a little off topic here, I will say, but another question I have for you guys, and maybe you can have some insight if you're someone who's been around for a very long time. Do you believe that the competitive fighting scene, or it's just competitive gaming in general, has become very soft? Because I will say that there was definitely a time back in the day, I'll say maybe 15 years ago, where being toxic and being belligerent and screaming and just being an absolute animal was part of the fun. It was part of the game to just pop off in the most heinous ways ever. But now you don't really see that anymore. And so I guess my question for you guys is, do you believe that the players of today are being overreactive and being spoiled little babies and crying or popping off? Or do you think that the scene itself has changed so much that At one point, it was truly acceptable to act in that way, if not completely normal. And now the competitive scenes have just completely changed. They're trying to take on this persona of being much more professional, where at heart, the average gamer is the average gamer is just that. They're in a class of their own. So what are your guys' thoughts? What do you guys think? Do you think showing emotion in video games should be brought back, or do you like the more professional approach that we are going towards here in 2024, going into 2025? Once again, this is Trixx and Meta Smash saying thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time.